Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Three Geeks podcast. Jason and Max, and we are here talking to the lovely Stacey Toy. How you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I was listening to other podcasts today, just learning more about you, checking out IMDb.
Yeah, we lightweight stalked you just a little bit. I mean, it
But
was.
did you get anything fun in like Stacey and Toy when you Google it? Because usually, like at least in fun like porno or sex toys or like something usually comes up like. Pastors over in the UK, they're like, "Oh, we Googled you," and I'm like, "Whoa, hold on!" Like,
we're doing that wasn't me, I swear.
I'm like, no, I'm a Christian girl, I swear. I just say the F word a lot. I'm sorry.
That's like one of my favorite words. I'm a pretty religious guy too, but cussing doesn't bother me.
Can you cuss on here?
Yeah, absolutely. Say whatever you want.
Feel free.
All right. I cussed the other day, and he was like, "Oh, hold on." Stop. And that's fine. But I'm like, I just need to know, like I said, I love Jesus, but I say fuck a lot.
No, it's cool. We tried to keep it clean for the first few weeks we were doing the podcast, and fuck all that noise.
We keep it clean for the interviews just because we don't know what our guest is going. Like, we want to be respectful to our guests, but if they ask ahead of time, then we know that.
I can't trust you if you don't curse. That's like when they're like, "Oh, donut holes" or something. I'm like, woman, like, come on.
Something's up with that.
Yeah, right? At least
so tell us about yourself.
Tell us about. You just said you were looking at all my stuff.
Yeah. Okay. No, all right. I'm gonna pose this to you. I kind of picture your life as like, you are Carol Bradshaw from Top Gun, which is your Goose's wife. That's I mean, it's sad and stuff, but like but you've done so many amazing things, and you've been like all around the world twice, and like there's just a lot of stuff going on, and I was like, it's really amazing. I was like, if they made a movie about that woman, it would be you. Like at least that's how I feel.
Well, we are in the process of doing a script right now based off of my life, which I'm sure we'll get into, with my addiction and depression and stuff, because all of my bio and all that stuff, all it basically does is just get me in the door. And then I'm like, failures, everybody, be proud of them. And they're like, you should see, like, literally, I've said this before, but their butt, like, I bet their butt clenched up so tight because it just looked like it in their face. Like, because it's like, please come talk. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, kids, you got to be, proud of your failures. And they're like, I see them. And I'm like, relax. Don't trust me. Like, so the bio is just to get me in the door, I guess, to really tell my stories. I'm proud of all the things I did. Don't get me wrong. And it's been hard and a lot of effort. I mean, but I just don't want to come off as like an overachiever. It's just that I lost so much like throughout the time because I grew up on a farm. We were like not poor, but we didn't want for anything, but we couldn't have extra, if that makes sense. Like I didn't have name brand sneakers, and you always waited for the fair to get the $5 Tommy Hilfiger fake t-shirts and stuff like that. So my parents and my dad instilled in me, basically, if you want to go and do things, you can, but you just have to figure out different ways how to do it. So, he said, nobody's going to come and knock on the door here. I'm like, okay. So I went out and scholarships and, organizations and getting involved in stuff. And then that paid for me to travel because I was representing organizations. I was having like board positions, so I had to go to meetings. So they had to pay for my travel. And, that stuff, it's fantastic. And then I ended up going to Elizabethtown College. And through that, I ended up at Oxford University through a study abroad program with them. And then I ended up spending more time because I got into another program right after that. And then a few years later, I got 2 different accreditations from the board, just like for writing and stuff like that, just because I'm bored and I like to like learn. So I'm like, if I'm going to have to do all the work and stuff and learn, then might as well just pay the money and get the credits and whatever. But while I was at Oxford, I was also taking 70 to 100 Vicodin a day. It was for years leading up to that. I know, like it should kill a horse. My tolerance level is super high. I've had my DNA stuff tested and it came back like opioids, fentanyl, morphine, all of that kind of stuff. I have a least reduced effect. And my body like metabolizes it faster because people have asked me, how come you're not dead? But I started in like my senior year of high school. It started to give me Like I was shy growing up, so it kind of gave me that confidence. How I am right now is how it made me, because I had to train myself to kind of just be confident in myself over the last, because I've been clean off of that. The end of this year will be 17 years already. So like you have to kind of. Thank you. So drug addict on the dean's list. It's the #1 school in the world.
Who says you can't have everything?
Yeah, right. Isn't life wonderful? It's like, oh, yeah. On the outside, it's like, yeah, like I even tell people now, I compare myself to like the dollar store chocolates, because they look all pretty with the foil, and then you eat them and it tastes like you're chewing on Barbie. It's plastic. Like you find them right next to the dollar pregnancy test in the checkout aisle. That's what like I feel like my life is, because everyone sees the shiny gold, but I'm sure if you bit into me, I taste like Barbie's hand or something. So.
You're probably better than Barbie's hand.
Everybody knows her, so I think her sister was Stacey, kid sister. I grew up on a farm. We didn't play with toys. I mean, my last name was Toy, and they're like, "Isn't that enough?"
So, what was your experience at Oxford like? Was that your first time out of the country?
Yes, it was. And my family is from over there, so I still had relatives. I'd never obviously visited them at that point, but I got a scholarship and I went to school. It was fantastic until I ran out of pills for the first time in about 5 years or so. And like it was my last week and being there to do like finals and stuff like that. I ran out of pills. So for 5 years, I was taking, it started out as 4, then 10, then 20, and then so 70 to 100. And then you run out and you can't get them because you're in a different country and don't have the insurance because you're going home and your parents can't send them to you. But the doctors at the time, it was pre-opioid epidemic. So like, they're like, oh, she's doing so well. And she's this, so just send her another 6,000. Like I never paid for anything. But then everything got completely ripped out from underneath me because I went through withdrawal. I had to face all of that. At the time, even when I asked for help, it was strange because the policies at the time weren't in place. Like I wasn't underage drinking. I wasn't shooting heroin. I was taking and abusing my own prescription, but I had the prescriptions and they were legal. Sadly, to almost like the amount because I got them from different doctors. But again, #1 school in the world, So it was a very, very long, hard process. I had to end up taking like a half a semester off of medical leave. And then I came back the next semester. But essentially, the only reason why I couldn't be there is just because they said I was a liability and they didn't know what to do with me. All of that kind of stuff, which looking back on it, I've had a couple of people who worked at the place that I had gone to school at, the college, and they had actually said to me, like, if it was anybody else, like they'd be dead already. I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like, you're lucky that my father just is like so determined and I can't kill myself. Like, that's the one thing I fail at. And thank God,
I know that's a good thing to fail at. I'm totally cool.
I was pissed. I'm like, I could do everything except this. Like, yeah. But it was like I wanted to die. Like, literally, I had just gotten to the peak and the pinnacle of what I thought was like, oh, this is gonna be great. And then just whoop, and it is a long, hard fall from the top. And nobody is sticking their arms out to try and catch you. I was the most popular person in it. Nobody. Literally the whole world turned their back on me at that time, except for my parents. They were really like, I have to commend them because it's all about perception and attitude. And my father instilled a lot of like positivity and tenaciousness and stuff, just because you're on the farm and he wants you to work. So when you're baling hay and stuff, he's like, the mighty oak is just, the mighty oak is just an acorn that stood its ground and blah, 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 but they plant seeds in your mind. And then 3:00 in the morning when you're going through withdrawal and you can't sleep and you're writing in your journal and, all that kind of stuff, you start to realize how wow, that actually makes sense. Okay. And then just little by little by little, because it took a long time. I remember like 6 or 8 months, but my eyelashes hurt. And I say that a lot, but like they really hurt. Like I can't even explain it to you. And I'm hoping that somebody else has their eyelashes hurt. Alas, no. So I guess that's how bad I was. My
email 3geeks@gmail.com. Let us know if your eyelashes have ever hurt.
Yep. I feel you, whoever you are, but nobody has said it. They're like, oh, me too. Like, you know, it's, oh, I got a Disney. Oh, me too. My eyelashes hurt. Crickets. But that's okay. It's cool because I wouldn't wish it on anybody. That's for sure. So anyways, I get myself kind of back together. I end up having 2 kids before I got married because I'm a cart before the horse kind of person. My mom's like, oh, one name on the mailbox and Catholic at the time. And I'm like, oh, relax. Like, so I got married. Like I said, after we had kids, my husband was in the Navy. He got out because he wanted to come home and have a family. I know a lot of his friends their wives were cheating on them and their kids were growing up without them. And so he decided after his term was up that he was going to leave. When he came back home, because he was a jet mechanic on the aircraft carriers and went around with like the Blue Angels and stuff, like it's Pennsylvania, but his family was here too. So we graduated together. We weren't high school sweethearts or any of that, but I don't know. There's something about a man in uniform, I guess, because when he came home, I'm like, what the hell happened to you? You know, like.
Definitely a noted difference when you come home with the uniform.
So not being able to get a job and just feeling like, you know, you were just on top of the world, literally. And then now, like, nobody wants to hire you and you're having a hard time. He was dealing with a lot of PTSD. He saw a lot of things like on the aircraft carrier. I know, for example, he told me a story about how one of the planes landed and that cord that's supposed to catch the plane snapped and like cut one of his buddies in half and killed him like on the thing. And so he would tell me these Navy stories and I'm just like, oh my, like to experience that, I just couldn't imagine. But through time, it just built up. So we got married on 7/7/07 and on 11/11/11, which is Veterans Day, he accidentally died of a heroin overdose. Now, he wasn't a heroin addict. This was like one of his first times, basically. So somebody else shot him up because he didn't know how to do it. And I found out who that person was. And I reached out to him, and about 2 months later, he got back to me because he was serving another jail sentence for like stealing chainsaws or something, but it wasn't related to this. And so he gets out of prison, messages me back and says, you know, what do you want? And I'm like, look, I know what happened. I want to talk to you. Can I pick you up tomorrow? Take you to lunch? I just want to talk to you. So he's like, okay. So I picked him up. He was at the halfway house at the time because he was shooting about 50 plus bags a day of heroin. And it was him, my husband, and 2 other guys that kind of grew up together because we all went to school together, but I didn't really know the guy who shot my husband up because he was a few grades younger than us and he was always a troublemaker. And, you know, I was captain of the varsity cheerleading squad. So like, I didn't want any like trouble. Like I didn't have to buy any drugs. I got them from my doctors because I manipulated them myself. I didn't have to tell anybody.
Man, I said.
What did you say?
Oh, I said skip the middleman. You know, just why?
So clearly, my hustle has always been there. It's just, you know, I just didn't even see it. It's all water too, everybody. See, it's clear, and I just want to make sure. You know, not that it matters. It's just some people tell me with the red silicone. Oh, you drink it? No, I gotta hang out for 4 days.
I'm usually drinking beer, but I
don't want a headache for that long. That's all. So anyways, essentially, long story short, I told him I would forgive him and help him get clean because I told him my story and how nobody wanted to help me. And so I remember just being, you know, years back, go by myself, going through withdrawal, sick as a dog. And I'm going, if I don't die and I get back up, you're fucked, all of you. Like, I'm just like, now I'm just pissed because I can't die. I remember writing in my journal, I was hella Nike sneakers. I was like, I've lost everything. Everyone told me I'm going to be a failure. I'm never going to do anything. I lost it all. So here we are. Hi, you know, but long story short, Nick has since gone on. He'll be clean 9 years this year. My husband's gone 9 years. I'll be clean 17 from hard drugs. And not only were we able to prove that the only thing more powerful than like addiction and drugs is love and forgiveness, but it sustained itself. And it's through, you know, his name's Nick. It's through his perseverance, really, because until about 2 days ago, I hadn't seen him for about 2 years. And so, but he texts me and checks in with me and he's grateful and he got his kids back. He, you know, he has his family, he has his own business. He's doing great. And when we were hanging out the other day, he was telling me about other people that were in drugs and this. And I said to him, I said, the fact that we're the most responsible people in the room now, like Jesus has got to be fucking coming back. Like, 'cause not,
I mean, 2020 has proven very, very odd. So I mean, it could be, like this, we could be warming up to that. It's that's so amazing though. That's really amazing that you're just able. Obviously, it was an accident, why your husband passed, but that's still a lot to forgive.
I wanted to make something good come from something bad, man. Like, I had been clean for a while. At that time, we were both 28 when he died, and my kids were 6 and 4. So I still haven't remarried or anything like that. But I just, it wasn't anything that you expect. But for some reason, I just was like, you know what? The hell with it. I'm just going to do it. Because I was ready just for him to tell me to go fuck off. Like, don't talk to me. And that's okay. I tried. And if that was how it was going to be, that was how it was going to be. But he was the worst of them all out of those 4 guys I mentioned before. And right now he's the only one left alive. All the rest of them died from overdoses over the years. So it's like, I'm just so proud of him because I can't believe that. Because I remember him in high school and he was the worst. Like, I mean, and that's why everybody said, why didn't you put him in prison? So why? That's his second home. Like, that doesn't do anything. Yeah. Like, his father was in the Hells Angels. His family he's been tossed around his whole life. Finally, someone sat down and was like, I believe in you and I know like how it feels because nobody helped me and I want to help you because nobody helped me. And he's like, I remember him saying, he's like, you're the one person who's supposed to hate me and you're the only person willing to help me. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I work. Like I saw what it felt like on the other side. Cause at that point, I was popular and everybody loved me. I was the prom queen, homecoming, and then it's gone. And that was like, I needed that to happen, though. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I needed to be like slant because I had a big head. I was just like, I'm so beautiful. I was an asshole. I was such an asshole. And I was dating guys. Like, I was going to all the proms and stuff because Facebook wasn't around and you could actually do that and not get caught back then. So, yeah.
So we'll get into all your fun stuff that's listed on IMDb. But I got to ask you, a lot of people don't want to talk about this stuff. What makes you so comfortable doing it?
Because they don't want to. And what are you going to, there's nothing anybody could do or say to me that I haven't already done to myself. And unless you could do more than me and like get honored at Parliament and all that shit and then be a 10, then what are you going to say? Like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a dick or anything, but it's like, I just want to be that person that's like, finally, nobody could fucking say anything. You know what I mean? Like, everybody always had something to say. Oh, but this. Oh, but this. Oh, you're doing great. But this. But it's been almost 20 years and here's where I am now. So it's like anybody else who's in this position, you could do this too. It's hard. You have to get up every day and just put one foot in front of the other. And that is an accomplishment sometimes.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, it's insane just to get out of bed is a big thing. But one day at a time. I remember one day felt like 2 weeks. And now I look back and it's been 17 years and I'm like, holy geez. But life's about perception and it's about reaction. And it's how you perceive things and it's how you react to it. So yeah, I could have just did exactly what everybody else wanted me to. There's 1,000 people standing behind me at my husband's funeral and I'm accepting this flag. And, it's like, of course, everybody's like, oh, how could you do this? How could you do that? And now everybody's friends with him because he's freaking awesome. Mm-hmm. So it's,
well, I mean, and that's the other thing too. It's like everybody is going to need at least one person to be behind them. So, you could be that person for somebody. And also like, look at what happens when somebody has a little bit of a support. He's like he's cleaned up, got his kids back, got a job, does his own business.
He's so busy, like he's been working like 28 days straight because he's got so much work, and I'm like, filming hasn't started yet,
but that's amazing, and that's wonderful too. That's really good.
I'm glad it worked out this way. It obviously very well couldn't have, and I'm surprised that it did. But I'm happy. The thing is if anybody else wants to do that stuff, you have to go into it just kind of like I did, and just know that they could tell you to go to hell, and that's okay too. But there's boundaries. There's just so much dealing with drug addicts. But it's so funny because it prepared me for this industry because everyone tries to manipulate you in Hollywood. And I'm like, oh, I can see this. If anybody could play, it's a fucking toy, okay? So it's like I see what they're doing, and I start to smile because I'm like,
you write that for the tagline for the bio.
But like I used to play this game too, so all right, game on, and it's like I see what you're doing, so okay, it's like tennis a little bit to me, and then like
So go ahead. What was your first job in the entertainment business?
I don't know if you consider it the entertainment, but I was a live news broadcasting director for almost 11 years, and I broadcasted America's highest rated local newscast in the country. I worked the Olympics in London. But my first things, I think, were down in the Harrisburg, Elizabethtown area. I was an anchor for the Tuesday news on ECTV 40. I was an entertainment reporter. I had a radio show on 88.3 FM. And all of the stuff that I played on there, I said it was an 80s show. And now that I have Sirius XM in my car, I'm like, I should have been fired. And they let me have this show for 3 years. Like, it's blowing my mind. I didn't know what I was talking about. But ultimately, until I started interning, I did go to school to be on camera. But then I started interning and I'm like, oh, I want to go and make less money and have all of this like, live, everybody around you and expecting you to do good, but then also blaming you for everything wrong. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. So,
so much more fun.
Well, it was. I mean, like I didn't breathe sometimes until like the commercial. But when I was over at the Olympics in London in 2012, they were switching to HD and they were also switching to the automation systems. So I got like kind of a first look at that. And then in 2014, they started bringing them to the United States. And the inventor of the program picked me and 2 other people to troubleshoot it for the entire United States. So the automation system basically put control rooms from like 12 people down to 2, and everything is just automated. And I perfected my replacement. So therein lied, okay, I'm doing what I wanted to do. And I thought this was like, I wanted to work at these places before I was 40. And, I was doing it and I had been doing it for a long time. So for a few months leading up to before I left that part of the business, I just started kind of brainstorming. I was still single, the sole financial provider for my 2 kids. And I'm like, I took my fuck it all. And I quit my full-time, comfortable job with benefits. And I just was going out and trying to figure out what I was going to do. But I knew that I had to do it for myself. And I gave myself a specific amount of time. So if I wasn't going to do it, then I'll go work at McDonald's. I don't care if I, went to Oxford, Harvard to have a master's. No, I don't care. Like I waitress, I came from nothing and I can deal with nothing and that's okay. Like I'm not going to complain about it. I'll do what I need to do for my family. But my first week on set of this movie, 100 Acres of Hell, that I got hired to be the public relations person for. Again, I like to learn how things work. I have a natural curiosity. I ask questions. Those questions on the first week on set. So my first week on a actual film set, they came to me and said, so your questions led to finding out some information. We want you to run the entire production behind the scenes for this movie. And I'm like, you guys know that this is like my first week on set. Like, yeah, but we think you could do this and like, we'll help you. And I'm like, okay. So Ernie O'Donnell from like Clerks, Jay and Silent Bob, Dogma, Jersey Girl. He's the star. One star of the film 100 Acres of Hell, as is Gene Snitsky, WWE superstar Gene Snitsky. And I began this job that I just got thrown into, but I saw it as an opportunity. And I'm like, if I really screw this up, I don't have to do it anymore. I could just, I'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. But I ask a lot of questions and stuff like that. So it led to me becoming a producer. My now business partner, Mark Denenbaum, who owns 25/8 Studios that I'm the COO of. I called him because he had been out before he started the production company here in the Poconos. He was out in LA. He was on production that started the first 2 seasons of Sons of Anarchy, House, 24, Scrubs, Elementary, Heroes, all these like major shows he worked on. So I was like, I have to call him. And I called him. I'm like, hey, buddy. So remember I was in news? Now I'm in film and I'm in charge of this whole set. And so I met with him. He told me I was a producer and I'm like, I'm not a producer because TV news producing and film producing are 2 totally different things. And so I only knew TV news producing. He's like, you're a producer. I'm like, I don't know. And so he hired me to produce a Toyota commercial. And he showed me and I'm like, oh, I am a producer. And that first commercial, we hired both my sons. The one son, my youngest son, was the lead, and my other son was like an extra or whatever. But it won an American Advertising Award. And
which Toyota commercial is it?
It was out like 4 years ago. It was like Veterans Day, Memorial Day. It's the one they played. It was like taking you home type message, I think it was. I mean, we've done so many from them. We've done Toyota commercials for the Paralympic Games, for the Super Bowl for a couple years. So like we've done a lot of stuff with them. But the one with my son, I was just really proud of because it had like a veteran background, and that was his dad. And obviously, I like to, at least instill different things and whatnot, because it doesn't make them sad now. It actually excites them to talk about daddy, and that's what I want. I didn't want them to be traumatized, and that's even just like the power of faith and stuff like that too. Like, I mean, you accept a flag at your husband's funeral and look at your 6-year-old and 4-year-old and smile and say, aren't you proud of your daddy? Like, because you didn't want them to be traumatized. I dare you. Because like, I don't even know. Like, I wasn't on drugs. And I'm like, what? Like, holy crap. But yeah, like the thing is I push so hard because I've been faced with everything so hard. It's not like, oh, I just tripped over a rock. It's like, you just fell off a fucking cliff and landed on the rocks before you hit the ocean. And then like, you got to get out. And it's like, I mean, you turn lemonade into duct tape. And
no, that's crazy. And especially like dealing, if you're a former addict, like in those rough times, like, now your husband's dead, and you got these kids, like you have the whole like world looking at you. And that's just again amazing that you're able to find the strength to just again put
like,
time.
Here we are again, but we're not going to get that far down. We're going to try and like stay a little closer, and again, this took almost 20 years to get to this point. But I just turned 37 last week, so it's not so bad. I mean, if I could do all that stuff in 37 years, then let's see what I could do in 37 more, I guess. I'm not trying to change the world, save the world, be like I'm not Oprah. I don't want to be Oprah. I don't want any part of that. But I
deal with Oprah money. I can deal with Oprah money.
Of course, then be Stedman. I mean,
that's what Max wants. He wants to be the Stedman.
Yeah.
Oh, if I could have got in there, I would have.
There might be a chance. He's getting old,
For our listeners, can you tell us what the producer does on the film set? Because I know a lot of people don't know, because a lot of famous names will attach themselves as producers, but it's not in the traditional sense.
I don't think there is a traditional sense, honestly. It's like, it's funny. I get new jobs like on every like project. Essentially, you're the mom. You make sure everybody's travel arrangements, their food, their permits for filming, the insurance, the contracts, the deal memos, and again, insurance, everything paperwork wise. And then I'm on set. If anything happens incidental wise, I mean, just anything you can imagine, I'm keeping my eyes out for everything. But also like people like celebrities and stuff that usually attach is because usually they get paid to put their name on it, or they'll make calls. Because the other thing is I've gotten producer credit for connections, because I'm friends with a lot of people and networking and bringing people together, and then you get brought on to projects. So producing, there's a reason why I think there's a filmmaking for dummies and not a producing for dummies, because I was actually very interested in writing one because I couldn't find one, and I figured I was going to just write some stuff. But it's good luck, man. I've got a few books that are about producing, and like some of them are this big, some of them are this big, some of them are this big, and they're all different. So a producer is what you want it to be, but you're covering everyone's ass. Essentially, you're going to be the one doing all the paperwork. Well, not necessarily. It just depends, I guess. An executive producer is usually just the funds, people who fund, and the investors. They're executive producers. Or if you like, I brought the money at one point because I brought the investors, so then I became an executive producer. So there's different ways of doing it. It's also negotiation. You could do stuff and then people just take advantage of it, or you can pay attention and you can make some money on it. And if not, and people say no, then you just don't, or you do. It's hard because you have to have a heart, but then you have to have a business mind. And a lot of people try to take advantage. If it's free, I'll take 3. And I'm like, listen, Queen Latifah. Yeah.
I want to get more into 100 Acres of Hell, but I have to ask what it was like being on the set of Viva La Bam and Comic Book Men.
Totally different. I was on drugs with Viva La Bam, well, like pain pills and stuff. I was in the episode with the Slayer concert at the Pirate Bar. You really can't see me because there's like a whole bunch of people there. I'm just credited, but we were there. And the Comic Book Men are my friends. Like, I love them. I was just with Mike Zapsik and Ernie O'Donnell last week at the comic book store, the Secret Stash. Because if you're going to turn 37, if you know any Clerks references, my roommate out in LA is Marilyn Gigliotti, who's the lead from Clerks, the original one. So like, it's like 37 is the number because it's like, don't suck 37 dicks on the way to the parking lot or whatever. So 37 is associated with her. So I'm like, well, the Secret Stash is where I'm going to go for my 37th. So Ernie and Zapsik and all of them, they took me out to lunch, and Ming and Walt was there. I didn't see Brian, but Brian and I talk a lot because I don't know if he talks about this often, but he used to also have like issues with drugs and stuff a long time ago. So it's like something we just kind of talk about. I love talking to other people about their drug stories and things that you've done, because it's insane that you even, like, if the drugs didn't kill you, you're like, how did that not? And then you're just like, wow, I'm never doing that again. But we're here.
I love the Comic Book Men. I listen to Tell 'Em Steve Dave with Brian and Walt and then Brian Q. No, that's super awesome.
I was telling somebody, do you remember the episode where they got that skull? It was like a skull from like Lithuania or Poland.
The Prussian kissing skull.
Yep, it's still there. And I was telling this one person the story because they looked at me and they're like, what is this? And it's like, oh, it just happened to listen to that one,
I went to the store and it terrified me because they have like the life size of Justin Long as the walrus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that movie messed me up. I can't even look at Justin Long the same.
I didn't even finish it. I thought it was terrible. Like, I'm sorry, Kat.
You gotta watch it to the end. Like, the Tusk it's a lot, but
I watched it twice. I'm good.
Yeah, I like that movie. I think more than I should. I've only watched it once though. That maybe
I'm with all these guys anymore, so it's like, just tell me how it ends. I don't even. It's not a lot.
The ending made me so mad. I felt so bad for the guy.
It's terrible. It's very sad.
Well, he's in the Secret Stash, and then there's Buddy Christ in the back.
Buddy Christ. I miss George Carlin. That guy was funny as hell. We went down there. I've been down there one time. I felt like I was going back to Mecca or something. Like, it was.
They're is doing the Smod Castle right now, which is going to open up in Jersey as well. They have a lot of stuff coming up. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to like say anything else, so I'm not going to, as I'll have to check. But maybe I'll tell you afterwards. But yeah, so there's some stuff that's going to be happening, and so just pay attention.
Awesome.
Will do.
Yeah, Kevin Smith's coming on one of my favorite podcasts this week. I'm super excited.
What's your favorite podcast?
What's that? Oh, the Schmodown, where they do trivia in the style of wrestling.
Yes, I think I've heard of that before. I'm in the world of wrestlers and stuff now because 100 Acres of Hell with Gene Snitsky. It also starred the bad guy Samu Anawahi from the Head Shrinkers. Afa Anawahi Jr. was the stunt double for Samu. Gene Snitsky obviously is like in the top, 40 best WWE moments for punting a baby. But yeah, I mean, Gene has been a friend of mine for years now. And so it was just, I trusted this team of people because I got to know them and there's mutual respect. We actually all still like each other. The film took like 10 years total, I think, to make, but I've only been on it for 5 years. But last October it came out on like Amazon, Vudu, like 32 streaming platforms. We just went out on Walmart and Walmart.com this past week, and then we played 3 weeks ago at in Times Square on the largest screen in the country. So,
what's the movie about?
So it's like this Gene has his bros weekend with his 4 guy friends that like to get together, and they go to this it's like an old reserve where people would hunt like elk and stuff, because they do have those around here, but there's this like inbred like person who kills people in the night. I'm not into horror and all that stuff, but whatever. I'm like, I'm here to learn. I don't care what it is. I'm like, I signed up for it, so I got to pay attention. And essentially, it tells the story because Buck Severs is the character's name that Gene Snitsky plays. He's the lead, and he basically is fighting like getting out of wrestling and being broken and hurting, and so he's like drinking and all that stuff, and his guys take him away. His wife got murdered, and his daughter got murdered. You don't really like see it or anything, it's just like known in the story, so they want to just take him away to kind of make him happier and whatnot. And and then they go through all the fun slasher-esque type scenes. But I love that film, not only because it was my first, but when my father told me that nobody was going to come and knock on the door here and at our house, I brought the entire production here because we filmed half of that movie on my property. So yeah, I was like, Dad, I got Hollywood here. And so he's on there talking to Gene Snitsky in the living room, and Ernie O'Donnell's petting the dog, and I'm like,
yeah, I see you. You got your kids in the commercial, using your family's location.
I could have said no, and that would have been okay.
What is the F Word?
F Word is a movie that my very good friend, her name is Heidi Germain Schnapoff. She was the stunt double for Jamie Alexander, the lead on Blind Spot. Okay. She's a amazing stunt woman. And she's very she's on Blue Blood, she's on Blacklist, Orange is the New Black, all of these major shows. And so she did this film, and that's about this guy who's a teacher, and he's a drag queen, but he's not gay. He has a fiance, and so he gets caught outside of his drag place in drag, and his students take a picture and then post it on all throughout the school. And then he basically has to, because there's parents like, oh, he's a pervert, he's, the F word, all the bad connotations, fairy, and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, the F word ends up being the thing he's most scared about, is because he's going to become a father at the end of it. So it's different, but it is actually really it's really heartwarming and cool. And so it just got into the Toronto International Film Festival, and I'm excited about that. So, woohoo! And Heidi's amazing. I know she's going to be doing a lot more. But yeah, F Word will eventually be out. I know it's doing the circuit run right now. But yeah, she's got more stuff in the works too, and I'm super stoked. She's amazing, and she doesn't live too far from me either, because all the people in New York usually live in the Poconos too. So it's really nice and convenient.
I also want to hear about Buddha Vista Highway, because that title is awesome.
I made it up because so Buddha Vista Highway is the movie that's going to be based on my life. Okay. It's not going to be like a documentary or anything. It's going to be like an actual, based on a true story type, kind of like The Blind Side, where I'll be like Sandra Bullock, where I'm not the hero because I don't want to be, but it's like I'm the catalyst. My character will be like the catalyst. But a bodhisattva in Buddhism, which I learned this a few years ago, the ultimate form of enlightenment is when you go through suffering. You have the choice. You can either go forward and continue to succeed, or you could stay back and suffer just a little bit more and bring a whole bunch of people together with you. And that's the ultimate enlightenment. I'm like, that's what I've been fucking doing, so, but I didn't know it was a bodhisattva. I was calling it Buddha Vista. So it's actually a word that's going to get trademarked very shortly from my attorney, because he already talked about that. But it's not even a word. I made it up. And Ernie O'Donnell threw highway at the end, because he's like, he made a song and stuff like Buddha Vista Highway, you ain't never going to go my way. And I don't know, there's a lot there, but it works, right? What the hell is it? Oh, there you go. So that's getting written, and hopefully we'll be able to do something, soon. So
I look forward to seeing that. That sounds like a good movie.
Yeah, we've met with a major studio and stuff. And again, I like to learn things, so I'm like, I didn't live through all of this shit so somebody else could get paid for it. Like I know how this stuff works. So he who has the money makes the rules. So, if I bring the investments and I bring everything and I have my attorneys, they're like the best attorneys in like Atlanta, New York, LA. We all learn from each other. I like to spend hours on the phone sometimes with my attorney because we're real friends, and he'll teach me and tell me about certain circumstances. And essentially, as a producer too, you need to know what you can do, what you can't do. You have to. I find a lot of loopholes, which are great because then you can save money, you can do things. But being smart is actually a cool tool. Yes, it takes time to read and to ask questions, but that's what's made me kind of, able to do all the things that I have been able to do and worth the money or to bring on or any of that kind of stuff, because I have worth that you can't really put a price on. I could give it to you for free because I got it, but I'm probably not going to do that because why would I? You wouldn't do it for me.
I just got a few more questions for you, not about any of the stuff you've done, just about you personally. But so you have Sirius XM?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a Stern fan?
I used to listen to him like in the 90s and stuff, like when his Body Parts movie and stuff came out.
Yeah. His show is so different now.
Really? I didn't even know he had one still, just because I thought he went to like American Idol and
he did America's Got Talent, and then that changed like his whole persona. Now he does long form interviews, and it's fascinating. He's probably one of the best interviewers on the planet because he brings therapy style to the interview. Mm-hmm. So it's really well done. So I mean, if you ever get a chance, check back in with him because it's awesome. And then what TV shows and movies do you enjoy?
I'm sad to say this, reality TV. Like I love everything on Bravo and E usually.
Have you watched The Circle?
On Netflix?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking weird and terrible. It's filmed in England.
I loved it.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing at the end and I'm like, really? Like this is just like
we interviewed one of the
people. Manipulation.
Yeah. It's exactly what it is. Social media.
French. This dude
I give you credit, man, because the English was tough. Like
I was addicted. I'm not a reality show person often. I don't know why that show pulled me in, but it did.
Well, I worked for a show with Beyonce's dad, Matthew Knowles, for the E! Network a few years ago down in Florida. It's not reality, man. I mean, I've worked on a few things, but they're not reality. There's always like a narrative, and it's funny because some of like the people would be happy and everything would be great, and then everybody'd get together, start filming, and then all of a sudden, like they're crying in the bathroom, and you got to run here, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like, what did you do to her? But so I'm going up to work out once we can film again, to work on a few big productions and stuff for big networks and stuff. So fingers crossed we could hopefully film soon.
yeah. I mean, it's just about being smart and being safe, and once everyone gets that through their head, they can we can start getting back to normal. I mean,
well, whatever, man. I just think get back to normal now because I'm a jerk, I guess, a little bit like that. Like if you have to be careful, obviously. But this is my livelihood, and if I didn't actually invest in like Bitcoin investments and like have other things that I thought ahead in case things like this would happen, because I haven't made a paycheck, since, I mean, I was at the Grammys in LA in January and then all this stuff happened. So like, I've just been living off being smart in it, in the past. It's getting smaller and smaller. So it's like, let's start working, but at least I know I'll be okay. The kids and I will be fine. We're still making phone calls. We're still doing things like that. But until we can really like film and whatnot, it's difficult because you can't do that in groups. And especially for union projects, like forget it with the COVID testing, and it needs to be in 3 days. And they're not helpful right now for especially independent stuff with like SAG and whatnot. Now I'm calling them out. I'm sorry. You guys like you refer people. You don't find out the answer because everybody's going to be asking about COVID because that's what you're supposed to be answering. But instead, you just refer me to somebody else who then refer me to somebody else. And it's like we were on the phone with LA, New York, Philly. Everyone had a different answer. It's like I remember when they had their update 3 years ago and I called to ask questions and I ended up explaining what that 235-page update was to the girl on the phone at SAG. And I'm like, I'm not even in the union, but you guys are pissing me off because you're taking up all my time with all this bullshit. But yeah, that's just
that's pretty interesting too. Like, so I mean, obviously you can only prepare so much before like the thing needs to be done. So like, how quickly did it get to? It's like, okay, now we're just spinning the wheels until we can actually, get boots on the ground. Like
when they said that we couldn't film and stuff like that. I mean, we could film on my property here, which we still might, because we're doing a documentary with a Grammy-nominated blues artist that they dubbed the Future of Blues. And so I have 30 acres up here. It's been in my family for like 250 years since they came over here. So it used to be like 500, and then, it just gets smaller and smaller. But everybody else lives in Scranton in the city or in New York or whatever. But I'm like, I'm just so glad that I was able to, me and my business partner have been able to build a place that's here, because everyone said that we wouldn't be able to do it. It wasn't possible here. And so we have affiliate offices in LA, Atlanta, Orlando, and in London right now. And I get to keep my ass here because that's what you do. It's like, oh, you said we couldn't do it? Okay, well, we have like a 14,000 square foot production facility right now at a top of the line recording studio, the biggest psych wall from here to New York and Philly. It's like we've got all of this stuff and nobody else does. And then we have all these affiliate offices as well. So it's like, oh, we couldn't do it here. Well, then we'll just put them everywhere, and we do work with a lot of people in all those different places, but it's nice. You don't have to go all the time. And I love to travel, but it's getting to be a lot too. I mean, now I'm getting antsy because I've only been to Kansas and Missouri and stuff so far just during COVID, because I had to go to do meetings and stuff in June, but I'm missing it because I usually work for some of the major networks over in Europe. And we do, like last October, I was over in Normandy, France, doing a World War II like short doc. I was in Sherwood Forest doing the Robin Hood story and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, so this year I was supposed to go to Vietnam and like Israel, and not happening. So maybe next time, but I'm getting antsy on planes now for long flights, and I think I'm getting old. That's it.
I'm 37 too, so
you feel me, man. Your eyelashes hurt yet?
No, I did pull a groin muscle rolling over in bed.
All right, you got that one, buddy.
Every time I stretch, my leg has a muscle spasm and it hurts really bad.
You guys are great hosts.
It's a fun, interesting experiment, getting old. But,
yeah. You gotta count to 3 to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. It's like, 1, 2.
Well, thank you so much, Stacey. It was awesome talking to you. We've been doing a lot of interviews lately, and I used to be extremely socially awkward. And I'm good when I'm on this. So I've been enjoying talking to new people. It's been awesome.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. You guys are great too. I mean, this was fun.
Yeah, we like to keep it cool. It's like when we started doing the podcast, we was like, it's about the conversation, and that's just, we just like to meet fun people and have a conversation. So
that's the best. I hate like stuffy people when everyone's like, oh, I'm better than you. And it's like, I bet you if I showed you my bio, it wouldn't be. I'm not that much of a jerk. So thank you guys so much, though. I appreciate you having me on.
Any social medias where everybody can find you?
Sure. Yeah. Website 258thenumbers.studios.com, and Facebook and Instagram is the spelled out 258 Studios. And then on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, I'm at Stacey Toy, STACEYTOY. My cousins are STACYTOY, and they usually don't send me my messages for like 3 to 6 months. It's understandable because they're a little older than me, which is fine. So don't forget the E, or else you won't get me.
I will have all of that in the description of this video or this audio. So thanks everybody for tuning in. You guys have a great day.
Recycle your droids.
Thank you.